So here we are in Ovid, in FSTA, and you'll see that Ovid has a number of different search tabs. And what your search will open up to when you open up the platform will depend on how it's been set up by the institution that you're getting access to FSTA through. So I'm going to go through each of these different tabs along the top here and show what they can do for you, because they really they all have different advantages and strengths and can be useful for different kinds of searches. So it depends on what your intention is, which kind of search you'll want to be doing. So we'll start with basic search. And basic search is one that is a little bit like using Google. And it is one where you can put in a small phrase and Ovid will actually capture the search terms for you. So it will recognize what are the key terms in your phrase, and it'll match it against the FSTA records and bring back to you those searches that it thinks are most relevant. So for instance, if we go and do a search, so how effective is caffeine as an ergonetic aid? And so this is something in sports medicine. So does it make you a more efficient athlete if you drink caffeine or consume caffeine? And so that's the phrase that I want to search, the question I want to ask, and I'll type it in there, and I get back 3,437 results, so quite a few results. And when I do start scrolling down, then I can see them, and I can see that right away the top one is very much targeted to my question, the effect of caffeine as an aid for anaerobic exercise. And then it's getting so that there's one word in the title, caffeine. This one still has several of the words in the title here. So, but I can tell here the effect of caffeine supplementation on sports performance based on differences between sexes. It's still quite focused on it. But if we go down and go down to the bottom of the page, so search result number 100, then I can tell from the title that we're starting to look at results that don't necessarily have to do with athletic performance, because this is about children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorders. So no longer about sports performance. So what has happened is that Ovid has pulled out my key search words here, and it has matched them against the records and ranked them by relevance. So the ones at the top are more relevant to what I've been asking, but it's quite an imprecise way to search. So the relevance is determined by the frequency with which my terms appeared in the record. So you can see in the top result that caffeine appears many, many times, and also where they've appeared. So in the title and in the subject headings here and in the abstract. So using basic search is not a particularly precise way to search, but it can be a quick way to pull back some relevant information if that's what you need to do. And the great benefit of using it in Ovid is that it's kind of like a Google search in that you don't have that much control over your search, but it's not like a Google search in that you know that it's only matching your search against the records that are in FSTA, and all of these records have been vetted, so you know that all of the results that you get back will be trustworthy, even if down along the list further of results, they're not necessarily particularly relevant. So now I'm going to go back to my search results and move on So the next tab here is Find Citation. And I'm not going to spend very much time on Find Citation because it's quite straightforward, I believe. So the time when you would use it is most likely if you have a partial citation and you need to find the full bibliographic information about an article. So sometimes things aren't listed properly in a reference list, or you only have a little bit of the information, and you can put in what you do have, and then it will bring back options. So that's when you would use it, and that would enable you to find the actual article. So if we move over to the next tab, Search Tools, this tab is devoted entirely to the FSTA thesaurus. So the FSTA thesaurus is really one of the key things about it that makes it unique and powerful and enables you to be a really efficient searcher in the field. And so it's helpful if you understand how the thesaurus works. So you already know that there's more than 1,300 different terms within it, and that they've been assigned by food scientists. But let's take a look at how it works. Here, we have a pull-down menu, and the top one is map term. The next one's just thesaurus, and then we have a permuted index. And then we have two more, scope note and explode, but the three that I'm going to focus on here are the top three. They're all really useful for finding terms that are appropriate to search with. With map term, it does what it says it does. It will map the term that you type in to the right term in the thesaurus. So I'm going to type in cow and click on search, and you'll see I come back with cattle, and that's not what I typed. And so we can see why this happened if we click on the subject heading here. And that shows us the term cattle, which we got for typing cow, as its full thesaurus term. So you'll notice that we have cattle alphabetically in this list. So we have cat mint, cats, ketchup, and then cattle, and then down below, cattle carcasses, cattle kidneys. And those are all white, and that's just alphabetical. But this bit that's in green is actually the thesaurus listing for this term. And so we see here that the first bit of this section is used for. So we've got the term cattle, and we can see that it's used for all these other terms that are related to cattle. So we have bovine, bulls, calves, cows, heifers, oxen, steers. And so what's happened is that the thesaurus has noted that we used cow, which is like cows, and it said, well, the actual thesaurus term that should be used is cattle. So it has done the work for us of bringing us to a more commonly used term. But it does something else for us too, because if we actually search cattle as a thesaurus term, then anytime a researcher used another term, so if they used bulls or calves or bovine or oxen or steers or cows, then all of those are gathered together for us under cattle, so that we don't miss these articles or patents or whatever kind of research output it is, because the language has been slightly different that the researcher has used. Language changes scientifically in different regions of the world, and it also changes over time. And as a researcher who is searching for things, it can be easy to not get all the variations on a term, but you don't have to if you use the thesaurus, because we've done it for you. You can also see that down here is the broader term, animals, and here are narrower terms, which are more specific terms. So cattle kidneys and cattle livers. And then you can see we also have related terms. So it might be that we don't actually want cows in the sense of cattle, like the living animal, but actually we were thinking that we wanted beef, so cows in the form that we'd be eating them. And if that was the case, we could click on beef here and search for that instead. And you'll see that that gets us into a cow-related thing in a different sense. So it's a way for us to be sure that we're searching what we mean to search. You can also see here that we have a number of 26,159 here. So that tells us that actually within the FSTA records, there are 26,159 that have the term beef assigned to them. And if we see this box here, it is under this column explode. And if you click on explode, then you're asking to search not just beef and all of these results, but also all of the narrower terms that are falling under beef. So beef extract, beef loaf, beef mince, beef products, etc. So if we wanted to search this, we would just keep this ticked and click on continue. And then our search here appears. So we did get this number of results, and we can tell because of the backslash at the end of the word beef that we have searched this as a thesaurus term, and the exp here at the beginning tells us that we exploded the term. So that's the way to read our search, and all of these results appear down below. But let's go back to the search tools and go back to thesaurus here. And so this time we're not going to ask to map it, but we're going to just search in the thesaurus, cow. And interestingly, now this time, it took us, instead of to beef or cattle, it took us to cheese. So, and the reason it did was because cheese is used for cow cheese and cow milk cheese. And so the lesson in this is that if you're searching for the correct term, it's really useful to, if you don't get it right away, to do a little bit of exploring within the thesaurus. If we go back again and search not the thesaurus, but the permuted index, so that means displayed in a different way, and search cow, then we get it quite strictly alphabetically with the term that we search. So we get cow cheese, cow milk cheese, cow pea flour, cow peas, etc. All of these are links that we can then go into the thesaurus view again and get that thesaurus term in context to make sure that we're using the right one. So we could then go ahead and say continue and get our results for cow peas if that's what we actually intended. So it's very powerful for making sure that your search is on target. And it's a great thing for both researchers and students who are still learning the terminology that you want to be using. So this time I'm actually going to jump over to advanced search. We'll return to search fields later, because advanced search is where you can really put using the thesaurus into action as a search tool for building a really effective search. So once we go to advanced search, the first thing that you should notice is that there's a box here, and it's generally ticked when you log into Ovid, but you should notice whether it's ticked or not. And if you've been doing something else in Ovid and have unticked it, then it will tend to remember that. The default is to have it ticked, and it's map term to subject heading. So that's exactly what we just saw in search tools in our first choice there with the map term. We are going to start to build a search here. So I'm going to do a search with ewe milk, so female sheep milk, and hit search, and I can see that there it is. Because this is the first time I'm doing it, I'm going to open it up to take a look at it to make sure that it's doing what I want it to do. And so what I'm doing with the search overall is I want to look at how the feed that sheep are eating affects fatty acids and how that then affects the quality of the cheese that's made from the ewe milk. So there's 4 different components to this search. There's the sheep's milk or ewe's milk, what they eat, the fatty acids, and then the cheese. So the first component that I'm looking at is the ewe milk. I can see that it's been used for sheep milk, and there's no narrower terms in this case. There are some broader terms, but I'm going to stick with this one. So I'm going to say, okay, continue. And I can see here, I've got my search for that as number 4, and I can see the number of results that came up. So that's one component of my search. So then I'm going to search fatty acids. And I'll do the same. And in this case, I can see that there are quite a few different narrower terms. Sometimes there's also related terms, which can be really useful. But in this case, I think what I'll do is I will explode. So search fatty acids as a subject heading and all of the narrower terms. So search that. And there's a lot of literature that has been indexed with fatty acids. So I'm going to move to my next term, which is feed. So in this case, I'm going to actually try it with an asterisk. So I typed there FEED and then an asterisk. So that got me feed or any other ending that could come off of the initial letters that I typed. So feeding, feeds. So this time I can see that the subject heading is feeds. And feeding is actually a narrower term within there. I'm going to explode this again. And so you can see now we've got 3 of the components of our search. And I'm going to do the last one. Cheese. And I'm getting a very long list of cheese. You can see my actual term here has been highlighted for me. And I can see in the narrower terms that there's cheese varieties. So I'm going to click on that. And this is a place where you can really see the specificity that FSTA gives you. So you can see many, many, many different varieties of cheese that you could concentrate on. And in each case, you can see the number of results that have been indexed against that. So I'm going to go back up here alphabetically to ewe cheese, but I still have cheese varieties ticked there. And I'm going to tick cheese varieties and tick against cheese and tick against ewe cheese. And you'll see at the top here we have combine with, and you can combine with and, or you can combine with or. I want to leave it as combine with or because that says that in this case, I want a search that has any records that have been indexed with the term cheese, any that have been indexed with the term cheese varieties, and any that have been indexed with that more specific term U cheese. So when I do that, I've got quite a few results. So now, with building my search, I want to bring the different components, the different concepts that I found results for together to find those where all the concepts overlap. So I've got 4 different concepts here. If I had more than 4, then there is the option to expand the list of all the searches that I've been doing. So they're not gone, they're just hidden for the moment. So I'm going to tick against U milk, against fatty acids, against the feeds, and against all the cheese options. And this time, instead of combining with or, which broadened the search, I'm going to combine all of these with and, because I'm saying I need to have U milk and fatty acids and feeds and the cheese in the results, because that's really focusing in on what I need. And so when I do that, I can see with 20 results. And you can click on display results here, but you can always just also scroll down, because whatever your latest search was will be the results that are showing under the part where you can see all the searches that you've done. So if we want to look at these, then you can click on the complete reference here, or you can click on the title, or if you want to do a quick view of just the different titles that you're getting, which is a way in which sometimes you can make a judgment about whether your search is on target or not. You can just display the titles, but I'm going to go back to a fuller view and show how you can open up a record and really look at it. So this is just the top one, and we can see, I don't know why they're not all being highlighted, but we've got feeds, we've got fatty acids, we've got U milk, and we have U cheese here. So we do have, and we also have cheese varieties. So we do have all our terms as subject headings. At this point, it's worth looking briefly at the components of the record. So every record will have the author or authors at the top, and then they'll have the address. The address is for the corresponding or the first author. So that should you want to get in touch with them, for instance, if you couldn't get the article through your library, it's always an option to write to or email the lead author and ask if they could send you a copy, because that is allowable within copyright. You have the title of the article, the source is where it's been published and when it was published, and then you have the subject headings. So these subject headings are the thesaurus terms that have been assigned by our editorial board, that really sum up the essence of the article for you. And then you also have the section and subsection. So these are FSTA ways that we organize our material. So you saw at the beginning with my PowerPoint slides that we did have like the fruit and nuts and the alcohol section. We have milk and dairy products, and then a subsection of milk and dairy products is cheese, not surprisingly. And then we have the abstract of the article. So when you're searching thesaurus terms, you're only actually searching these subject headings. And we can be really confident, as I go back to our result list of 20 results, that each of these is really focused on the 4 concepts that I wanted to search about. So there's times when you'll actually want to search a little bit more broadly, because these were all thesaurus terms. But depending upon the reason that you're doing the search, it will partly govern how you do the search, how you do your searching. So when you're doing a systematic review search, where you have to be absolutely exhaustive and make sure that you don't miss any relevant literature at all, then you wouldn't limit yourself to searching the subject headings. You would also search some of the terms, or perhaps all of the terms, as keywords. So, and when you do that, first of all, you untick this box so that you're no longer mapping your term to subject heading. And you can type in here. So we'll leave this as keyword, but we'll change our search from cheese as the subject heading to cheese as a keyword. And I'm going to do what I did earlier with feed, where I truncated. So I'm going to type cheese and then add an asterisk. And you can see that when I did that, that I also have the choice in this database to use a $sign, but I like to use an asterisk usually because you can use that in almost any database. So that will search for me cheese or cheeses. So in whichever form it appears. And so I'm going to search that. And if I go back here, and this is when you have to start really keeping track of things, I can search for cheese varieties or cheese or U-cheese, all of which were thesaurus terms, which I know because of the backslash. And I can also search cheese truncated as a keyword. And Ovid tells us that when it's doing it, it's searching 3 different fields. It's searching the title field, the abstract field, and the heading words. So there will be some overlap with our earlier search. And I'm going to tick these 2 and combine them with or. So I'm saying I'm happy to have any of those as subject headings, but I'm also happy to have them if the word cheese only appears in the title or in the abstract. It goes from 29,000 to 47,000, so it's a bigger bunch of results. So I'm going to see what happens when I combine that with my other concepts, which right now I'm not going to make broader. I'm still going to keep those all as subject headings. So I combine those with and you can see that by broadening out cheese so that it could be included in the title and abstract or abstract, and didn't have to necessarily appear in the subject headings, that I added 6 results here. So when you look at them, then you can see, here's an example where it's not in the subject headings, but we can see that the term has appeared in the abstract. But from the first sentence, I get the sense, because it says sheep production is becoming an important alternative in the agriculture section, that it's focused more on the sheep milk production than on the things that is done with the sheep milk. So depending on what your search is for, will really determine whether or not you want to do this broadening out. So things that are quite important to master in using advanced search are the ands and the ors, so that you can keep track of when you want to have the different concepts intersect and when you need to make a concept slightly larger. So multi-field search is sort of like advanced search, but I actually personally like advanced search better. It gives you the chance to search all of these different fields specifically. So you can see that there's a lot of different fields available. And so when you search all fields, you're actually searching everything on that list. So if we search, for instance, Portugal, we get 9,000 results. And some of these results will have to do with food commodities in Portugal, but some of them, like this first one, is appearing in the results because it's the author's address. So the lead researcher on this research is based in Portugal. So if you're trying to search Portugal as a topic, then actually using the advanced search is more useful because you'll know that you're only searching the title, the abstract, or the subject headings. So it won't be the address as well. But if you want to, it's quite possible to build a search, and you can see here you've got the ands, or, and also not, to exclude things. So you could, for instance, type urchin here, and then you can also use the limits, which I haven't shown you yet, but down here there's a lot of different limits. So you could, I wouldn't advise using the full text limit, but using these publication limits could be quite useful. So for instance, I could say I only want to look at patents that have to do with urchins. If I open this up, then I have more limit options. So I showed you the sections earlier. So you could say I want to look at fish and marine products, patents to do with urchins, or I could look at the section economics if I wanted to, but I think I will stick to fish and marine products. You can also limit by however many last years you want to. Caution with that, again, it depends on the purposes of your research. It always depends on the purposes of your research. But if you're trying to be comprehensive, or if you're new to a topic, it's advised not to limit yourself to just the recent literature, because it's quite likely that things have been published earlier that you may not be aware of that are quite important. So I'm not going to put any limitations there. You can also say that you only wanted results in Polish or something. A note on that is, oops, I want to get rid of it, have no limitations. One thing that's quite useful about searching FSTA is that we do have results in all these languages, but they're all searchable in English, and the thesaurus terms are applied in English so that it's pulled together, and then you can get these results. And if it looks promising from the bibliographic information that you get in the record, then you can always go and get your hands on the article and get it translated. So again, just like it's a good idea not to limit yourself particularly by years published, how long ago it was published necessarily, it's also generally a good idea not to limit it by language, but rather if it's a really great result, it might be worth making that extra effort to get your hands on it. So I've chosen some limits. I'm limiting my search now, and I can see that I have 5 patents that are about urchins, that are about sea and marine products. So if I click through, I can get more information on any of them. So there's just a couple more things that I want to demonstrate. If you go back to advanced search, you don't always have to search by keyword. You also can use the author. And you'll see that if we search by author and we map the term to subject heading again, you can actually find an author's listing in the database. If I search for an author with the surname of Torrell, then I can see that I have all these different Torrell authors. And in this case, I know that it's Torrell PG I'm after. So I can search for it, for them, and I get all the results where he has actually authored or been an author of the result. So this can be helpful if you're looking for somebody specific. I also want to go back, as promised, to the search fields. So now that we've seen multi-field search, this is quite related. This again shows you all the fields that are searchable. You could search all fields like that, or you could select a specific field. So if you wanted to find out all of the research that had come out of a particular institution, you can use that. So author's address, I could say University of Nottingham. Oops, it's quite important to spell it correctly. And at this point, I want to say that you need to know that this is being searched as a phrase. So I'll only get the results where the author's address, the address of the lead author, has been written out as University of Nottingham. So if there's variations on that, I won't get those results. So it depends on the institution, but if it's an institution in a non-English speaking country, then it's often worth putting in the English version of the institution's name as well as the local, the original version of the name, because depending upon where the research was published, it can make a difference for how it's been displayed in that field. So that's another way that you might be able to find collaborators at a particular institution, or get a sense of what the most recent research is that's coming out of a particular institution. And so, to reiterate, I think that the field, the searching that most people do, that really gives you a good amount of control and efficiency, but yet lets you be really comprehensive, is the advanced search field. You can see that again you have limits that you can use, but usually it's mostly in building the search with the different components that you found here at the bottom that you'll come and find exactly what it is that you're looking for.